What if China and the US went to war? Will this war destroy the planet, or will it crash the world economy and send billions into chaos? And even worse, will we witness World War III? Or could it trigger the end of humanity? You're watching. Imagine the extreme number 10. What if China and the US went to war? The world's two biggest superpowers. This war wouldn't just be fought on the ground. It would ripple through every invisible system that runs our modern world. Imagine while nations crumble and cities burn. Someone in China might be sitting there thinking, well, at least I still have TikTok. Oh wait. Turns out when the world ends, even your favorite spyware app can't save you. Now, let's say the war begins. The first shots are fired in the South China Sea, where Chinese warships armed with DF-21D carrier killer missiles clash with the US Navy's advanced destroyers and submarines. Geography gives China the edge. They're fighting in their backyard. Their forces can launch and return from mainland bases within hours. The US, on the other hand, is operating thousands of miles away. Even with 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, this logistical disadvantage would be a nightmare. Well, who do you think would gain the upper hand here? Is it the US's superior technology or China's home field advantage? Let us know in the comments. But it doesn't end there. The skies would become a battlefield too. The US deploys its F-22 Raptors and F-35 Lightning II jets, machines so advanced they're virtually invisible. But China counters with J-20 stealth fighters and advanced missile systems designed to bring down anything in their airspace. And while these battles rage on, the cyber war escalates. Satellites go dark, communication systems fail. Nations would be thrown into panic. It's chaos on a scale we've never seen before. Here's where things get terrifying. Wars between superpowers don't stay confined. Allies are pulled in, and suddenly, this isn't just China versus the US, it's the entire world at war. The US calls on NATO, Japan, South Korea, and Australia. China turns to Russia, North Korea, and Iran. In the back end, Russia might use this opportunity to solidify its influence in Central Asia and Eastern Europe, strategically supporting China while ensuring it emerges as a key power broker. Russia could also quietly expand its energy trade with neutral nations, gaining economic leverage amid the chaos. But let's bust a stereotype here. Russia won't just blindly support China. They'd likely be strategizing how to emerge as the dominant power once the dust settles. Cold, right? But what about neutral countries? Countries like India? Do they side with the US? Or stay out of the conflict and risk isolation? While India might strengthen its alliances with the US and other Quad nations like Japan and Australia, providing logistical support while avoiding direct conflict. Domestically, India could ramp up military production and cybersecurity defenses, preparing for potential spillovers of the war. And the economic fallout? Catastrophic. The South China Sea, responsible for 1/3 of global shipping, becomes a war zone. Trade collapses. Factories shut down. Shelves go empty. The price of everyday goods skyrockets. Suddenly, a war between two nations becomes everyone's problem. But here's where things go from bad to apocalyptic. If neither side gains an edge with conventional weapons, the stakes escalate. The temptation to use nuclear weapons becomes impossible to ignore. China has around 400 nuclear warheads. The US has 5,500. But you don't need thousands of nukes to destroy the world. A single launch could trigger mad, mutually assured destruction. Imagine this: Beijing, Shanghai, Washington, New York, obliterated in minutes. Survivors would face a nuclear winter, where crops fail, temperatures drop, and billions starve. Humanity is pushed to the brink of extinction. But hey, what if we gave China the ultimate made-in-China treatment? Their missiles break down mid-air and accidentally target their own cities. As for the US, well, at least they can finally fulfill the American dream, wiping themselves out with their overpriced military tech while the rest of the world watches in disbelief. Well, jokes apart, nukes aren't the only nightmare. Imagine super soldiers on the battlefield, genetically enhanced fighters with superhuman stamina, speed, and strength. It sounds like a sci-fi movie, but with advancements in CRISPR technology, it's chillingly possible. And if that's not enough, there's always biological warfare. Imagine an engineered virus designed to target specific populations, spreading silently and invisibly. Forget nuclear fallout. This is the kind of weapon that changes the course of humanity forever. The aftermath of this war trade systems would collapse entirely. Nations dependent on Chinese manufacturing or American technology would face decades of rebuilding. What do you think life would look like in your country after such a war? In the US and China, citizens might face rationing, disrupted communications, and widespread unemployment. European nations could see refugee inflows and economic instability, while developing countries might experience heightened poverty and resource shortages due to collapsing global aid systems. Let us know in the comments. The political landscape would shift permanently. Alliances forged during the war could redefine global power structures, while the scars of destruction would linger for generations. And humanity? The psychological and physical toll would be unimaginable. Entire cities erased, economies shattered, trust between nations gone forever. This wouldn't just be a war, it would be the end of an era. So who wins? Here's the cold hard truth: nobody. If the war stays conventional, it drags into a bloody stalemate. The US's global reach and advanced tech square off against China's geographic advantage, and neither side walks away victorious. But if nukes or bioweapons come into play, the question of who wins becomes meaningless. Everyone loses. This isn't just a what-if scenario, it's a warning, a reminder of what's at stake when superpowers clash. The cost of war between nations like China and the US isn't just high, it's unthinkable. So, the next time you hear about rising tensions in the South China Sea or a standoff over Taiwan, remember, diplomacy isn't just a strategy, it's survival. China and the United States have been locked in a complex rivalry for years. But how could this rivalry turn into a war? South China Sea, a region that holds $5 trillion in trade annually. It's also one of the most contested territories on Earth. China has built entire islands here, armed with missiles and military bases, and claimed the sea as their own. The US? They're not backing down. Their warships regularly challenge China's claims, cruising through these waters to remind everyone this is international territory. And then there's Taiwan. China calls it a breakaway province. Taiwan calls itself an independent democracy. And the US? They've pledged to defend Taiwan at all costs. Imagine Chinese forces storm Taiwan's beaches. US naval fleets will race to intervene. It's the perfect storm, and suddenly the world's two largest militaries are toe-to-toe. What if the next superpower conflict wasn't between nations, but between humans and machines? Discover the shocking reality in our video. What if Tesla robots took over the world? If this made you think, hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what other what-if scenarios you'd like us to explore.